Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is one you don't want to miss. It's going to be an amazing show today. I've got my buddy Mike Lima here. Mike Lima is the godfather of wholesaling as far as I'm concerned. Done over 2,400 transactions. Been an investor since 1992. That's when I graduated from high school, by the way, Mike. And I'm no
Thanks.
young bird either. But hey, what I'm most excited about is obviously spending time with Mike because we've become great friends over the years. But to find out that Mike is, he's not all over social media. He posts some stuff, mostly of him climbing mountains and stuff like that. A lot of running. But here's what I just found out. I had no idea. I know that, he's kind of shied away from social media and stuff. This is his very first podcast interview, and I'm super honored and excited to be that guy, Mike. So thank you so much for being here. Professional real estate investors know that it's not really about the real estate. In fact, real estate is just a vehicle to freedom. A group of over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors from across the country meet several times a year at the Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind to share ideas on how to strengthen each other's businesses, but also to come together as friends and build more fulfilling lives for all of those around us. On today's show, we're going to continue our conversation of fueling our businesses and fueling our lives. I'm glad you're here.
Absolutely, Mike. And you're that guy for a reason. I've turned down a number of requests over the years to be on other people's shows, and I've just kind of way I wanted, I wanted to develop my own brand at some point. But
Yeah.
in the meanwhile, if I'm going to come on and do it, I'd rather work with someone like you and kind of give my information, give my info to you because you've just been a great inspiration. You do things the right way. It's not all about the showboating. It's about the sharing and the information and helping people. And so that's really
I'm honored, and thank you for the kind words, Mike. That's amazing. And honestly, what I love about guys like you, and there's not a lot of them, is you just have your head down in the trenches, just doing deals. Like you're way less worried about being flashy or showing off, and that's why people know you from coast to coast. But in the Phoenix market, everybody knows you're the godfather out there. So excited to have you here, though, my friend.
Thank you. It's been good.
Yeah. So, hey, tell us a little bit about your background. I just kind of alluded to it. It's a very rich background, been a long time, a lot of deal flow, over 2,400 deals, but maybe just give it a little more context than that.
Well, yeah, I started in the corporate world, like you did. So right out of school, because I got out of high school a little bit earlier than you. Went to college at University of Pittsburgh, and then started in corporate immediately. Became a CPA, became a CFO at the age of 26. I'm sorry, corporate control at the age of 26, CFO at the age of 31. So I was kind of on that fast track, and all I knew was, to have a job and the work your butt off and climb the corporate ladder. And so I did that and traveled extensively overseas with those positions and was just out of town, 4 to 6 weeks at a time, just never around. And when we finally started thinking about, okay, let's settle down and have a family and have kids, and we finally got pregnant, I was literally overseas constantly in between Africa and in Europe primarily. And so I, at that point, some guy in Portugal, an engineer in Portugal I was meeting with, said, hey, you got to read this book. And it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but it was in Portuguese, And so I came back to the States and he had shipped me a copy of it in English. And so I read that over the Christmas holiday. And a few months later, I quit my corporate job and just started doing real estate.
Wow.
So that was
awesome.
the beginning of the full-time gig. I'd been doing it part-time for a while, but then this jumped me in full-time in the real estate and just started figuring out from lease options is initially where I got started, which I hardly ever do anymore, by the way. And then just progressing up from lease options to fix and flip. And then really wholesaling just became something to do once I realized that my deal flow was so strong, I couldn't fix and flip everything. So I just started wholesaling off everything that was left over. And we've had some just really, magical years, some great years. So worked with a lot of good people. I've had a lot of great folks come through my shop who are now extremely successful and much more successful on social media than I am because they really put themselves out there and they're wonderful people. And so I'm just, kind of proud and blessed to have been a part of their journey along the way as well. And so, now fast forward to 2023, I've done a little bit of everything. I've done hundreds of fix and flip and buy and hold portfolio rentals, done vacation rentals, of course, thousands of wholesale deals, and every asset class you could think of between commercial and industrial, multifamily, single family, all that stuff.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
enjoy seller financing and kind of just creative deal flow. I'm big about deal structure. I think deal structure is as important as price, as getting the right price on a property. Structuring that deal to be a win-win.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think part of that is your wisdom from having done it for a long time. Part of it is you have a financial background like me. Like you just think it's a like you said, the deal structure is really important. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat. And I know part of it probably is just being in a market like Phoenix that's had amazing highs and amazing lows. You have to get creative sometimes, right? And so you just build up these skills that you just kind of tuck away in your proverbial tool belt and use them whenever you need them, right?
That's true. And the other thing with Phoenix, Arizona in general, it's just a highly competitive market.
Sure.
There's other states and cities around the country that aren't nearly as competitive as we are, but we've got a lot of so-called gurus. We've got a lot of guys with a lot of great knowledge here in Arizona. As you guys do in Dallas area too.
Yeah.
But so you got to be sharp on your game. You got to be thinking about what's coming down. How do you separate yourself, differentiate yourself from the other guys?
Yeah.
It's just part of the game.
Yeah, and I know you won't do it, and I'm not asking you to do it, but if you can make a whole list of all those gurus or all the rock stars that have come out of Phoenix, there's a lot of amazing people there, and maybe a couple that are on the shithead side too, I'll say, but every market has that, right? But honestly, most of these guys, if you were to show a laundry list of people you've impacted, or whether you've coached or mentored them directly or had an impact, I bet it's a laundry list that would be very impressive. So I won't even ask you to pull it out there, but that's great.
It wouldn't be fair. Yeah. But there are a lot of great people and they know who they are.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about maximizing deal profit, because that's one of the things that, just to be honest, for folks that are listening, every guest I have on, I always have the question of what do you want to talk about today? And let's come up with something that makes sense, that you're passionate about, and something that would make sense for
baseball might work, because the Diamondbacks and the Rangers are both kicking butt this year for a change. So should we just
might have to do that
for next hour?
That might have to be the second episode, Mike. But we're gonna talk about kind of maximizing deal profits. And I think where we are in this market, you have to do everything you can to maximize the deal flow, because for a lot of people, deal flow is down, and if they're playing it right, profits might be up per deal. But let's kind of dive into maybe just kind of to lay the groundwork, talk about aside from the obvious stuff, the importance of maximizing the profit on every deal.
Well, yeah, I'm lucky. I've been in Phoenix for a long time, and people kind of know me here, so I get probably a larger percentage of referral business than most folks do across the nation. And it's just because I'm old. I've been doing this a long time, that type of thing. But still, I still go out and I still pay for leads as well. It's not all referral. I wish I could. I'd be in Fat City, but I still get do my fair share of marketing spend, and on those deals, I appreciate that, it takes a lot of work to get a deal to a deal, lead all the way through the system to a real deal, And I know that, from talking to the Investor Fuel folks, that, most folks are in the range of, the cost of the marketing spend for a lead to get all the way through to a successful deal, a closed deal, it's somewhere in the range of $5,000 to $9,000 per deal, and that's kind of been consistent lately. So, which is quite high, So when we get one of those deals, and we've invested all that effort into getting it that far, getting a seller to agree to your price, and getting it to the closing table, why not at that point make sure that we've optimized that squeeze as much juice out of that puppy as we can, right? Because that's a pretty big investment. And as soon as that deal's over, guess what happens? We got to go start that engine again and work the next lead all the way through the system,
Absolutely.
right? So, and you have to have these things all stacked up. But if you can get more out of each one that you're already working on, just obviously makes a lot of sense, and you're not taxing the rest of your organization normally. I mean, typically on a standard deal, you've got, your acquisition side getting all the way through, but then you've got your TC, your dispo, everything else that takes place. Once you got that deal, if you can tag onto that deal with a couple extra services or more profit, you can usually do that without even without paying one dime more in TC or in dispo, because you already have your buyer, you already have the TC, everything's been done. So it's this purely incremental profit drop into the bottom line.
So sometimes people do that by choosing a different exit strategy. They might wholesale it instead of assign it, for example. Well, let's come back to different exit strategies, but you just said something interesting. You talked about tagging on an extra service. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that, most of us out here have done more than just one service or one exit strategy in the real estate world, right?
Sure. Yeah.
There are folks that are primarily fix and flip guys, right? Guys that are primarily rental guys, and within rental, it could be long-term rentals, it could be short-term rentals, right? There's guys that do coaching. You've done a lot of coaching. I haven't done a lot of coaching. I do mentoring, where I'll mentor someone, and then and we'll work together on live deals. And when the live deal hits, I'll take a percentage of profit at that point, as opposed to taking them up front. But coaching, mentoring, there's private lending, financing. So there's so many ways, wholesaling, as you mentioned earlier. There's so many ways to monetize what you're doing, right? And so what I'm saying here is, but there's an opportunity to take a few of these things and stack them on top of each other in certain deals. So
Yeah.
instead of just taking a wholesale deal and closing it out and making your $15,000-$20,000 whole assignment profit, there might be an opportunity for you to tag onto that thing and get some additional profits downstream
Yeah.
with that same exact deal, the same buyer that you already found.
So give an example, give a specific example, if you don't mind, of how you make some money up front and then maybe make some money, because you just mentioned an example of, maybe you finance it to the wholesaler and you get a piece of the profit on the back end. Or give a couple of examples like that that you would say are kind of common, that folks listening to this might say, a lot of times the ideas we hear are simple enough. We're like, gosh, I never thought about that, but that makes a ton of
Yeah.
sense. Like, what are some things that you do like that you see other guys probably missing out on, that you think is just like bread and butter? This is how you should do it.
Well, I think the simplest one, let's start with the simple ones. The simplest one is, everyone on this call is probably either wholesaling or fix and flipping. So in one way or another, you've got a product that you've now found a buyer for, and you're getting ready to close escrow, right? And a typical thing that happens is, you get towards the closing table and the buyer can't come up with all the funds, or at the last minute he's trying to do a price reduction on you, right? And so you can either go ahead and kill the deal and start with find another buyer, which is painful, right? Or you can find a way to make it work. I almost look for those opportunities. It's like, just like I love seller financing. Every deal I talk to someone, my seller financing hat's on, even if that's not where they're going. I'm going to somehow figure out, is there a seller financing play on it? Same thing here. I'm going to look for, how do I monetize this deal? How do I make a little better deal out of it than it was a few minutes ago when we first struck the deal, And so if you're wholesaling or you're fix and flipping that property, you've got your buyer, and then you could always even just offer to the buyer, hey, would you want me to carry a second mortgage for you back? I can carry back 10, 15 grand for you. Oftentimes they're going to need that. I mean, we've seen so many deals that almost blow up because someone at the last minute is running short on cash. They thought they had this much money, but something happened, or they went out test driving cars this weekend. Now the FICO score just dropped, and now they can't get the full LTV that they had. I had one this last summer that was it was actually a commercial property, a commercial plaza, like a strip mall, and it was I was about to make $175,000, won't get all my equity out of this property, right? And the rates were changing last summer. Things were a little bit different than they are now. Lenders were getting scared. Rates were creeping up, and lenders started cutting LTVs. So they cut my buyer's LTV by just over 10%. So it left him about $80,000 short of the cash I was getting, about half of the cash I was going to get back. So I could have gone back, and I could have gone and found another buyer, right? And spent all that time marketing all that stuff. Or I could have doubled down and made more money with the buyer I had. So what I said is, hey, look, I'll give you a second of $84,000 at 15% interest. I'll give you a whole year to pay me off, and he said, wow, great. Let's do it. We signed, and we closed it the next day instead of having to go back to the drawing board and do all that stuff, right? So what did that do for me? I got $91,000 of cash right up front that at closing the next day, and I carried back the $84,000, which I charged them 15% interest, which is really a fair interest rate for second position, right? But it's a property that I already knew. I knew the property. I knew the tenants. I'd put the tenants in there. So even if I had to take that property back, one, I had the ability to take the property back if he defaulted. Two, if I took it back, I already knew all the players involved in the deal, and they'd been happy to have me as a landlord again. So I wasn't concerned at all. So in the meanwhile, I charged the buyer basically 3 points or 3 percentage points on the deal, $3,000 on the deal, and then packaged up with a 15% loan, which she then made monthly payments on. That loan started out with a 20% APR essentially attached to it. but he paid it off in less than half of the year. So it ended up being like a 26% APR to me. So I made an extra $16,000 of interest slash loan fees on that one deal. And so when instead of getting 84 back at the end of that period of time, I got 100,000 back. So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
and instead of making 175,000, I ended up making 191,000 on that deal. And so really that extra 16,000 cost me just about nothing to do. I mean, I delayed my gratification of that
Right.
cash for a little while, right? But I basically created another little mini wholesale deal, a $16,000 profitable deal. I would have had to go out and work through other leads and figure out, what deal I could squeeze 16,000 out of, or $26,000 if there's a $10,000 cost per deal in there, right? So 26, I'd have to go find a $26,000 deal to make that same 16,000 back again. In this case, I made 16,000 clean and easy without having to go and do anything else.
That's awesome, Mike.
And
Now you just said a phrase, and I say it all the time, and the importance of it. And you've been doing this for a long time. I want you to share a little of your wisdom on what you just said, delayed gratification, because there's a lot of real estate investors that they're either the business isn't big enough to afford delayed gratification, like they have to do a deal now to survive or to pay the bills or whatever. You've been doing this for a long time, and obviously it helps when your deal flow is higher because you're kind of making money that you need to cover your costs, and then you can effectively play with the house's money a little bit and afford to push that out if the deals are sweeter. But just share your thoughts on, I know we're cut from the same cloth here. Share your thoughts on the importance as a real estate investor of delaying gratification.
Right. I don't think it can be understated. I think delayed gratification is one of the biggest reasons that the successful folks are successful in life, and why other folks are not successful in life. If you're cut from the cloth where you feel like everything you make you already have it spent, and you go ahead and you live your life that way, well, guess what? Typically you're not then building the wealth. You're not building the things. You might have a lot of assets, a lot of stuff, but you don't really have wealth, right? The wealth is really what's behind the scenes, what you're able to put and park for the future, right? And so I've always been that way, even in my corporate days. I always, worked my butt off and just always delay gratification. Figured I'll put the time in now. I'll climb the corporate ladder. I'll make my money later, and it's worked out well for me. In real estate, I think it's super important to do that as well. Now, not everyone's in that position to do that. If you're just getting started, maybe you just quit your job and you just need income. You need to put food on the table. You're in a different position, and I get that. You got to go deal to deal to deal to deal. But as soon as you have a little bit of leeway there, I just implore folks to really delay that gratification, take that money. And all I did, when another way of positioning it, I said delayed gratification, but I could have also said I basically chose to take some of my equity out of that deal and make money on my equity. So that's another way of looking at it. Take that equity. I don't need all 175 right now. I took 91 right now. That other 84, I'm going to leave in there and let that keep earning more interest for me. And at 15%, or as it turned out, 26% APR, right? It's amazing. Who gets 26% on the money, that easy on a deal that you already knew and put together. So
yeah, if you think about like the wealthiest people in the world, like, they talk about Elon Musk, the Jeff Bezos, all those guys. The truth is most of that it's in stock in their companies, which means there's a story, and I'm going to screw this up, but there's a story of like there was a third founder of Apple, and he sold his shares at like $800 or something, like real early on, and they like tens of billions of dollars now or something, right? And it's exactly that, like the Steve Jobs of the world, the Elon Musk of the world. All those guys, they delayed that gratification. They could have sold their stock at any point. And of course, they're selling small amounts along the line. The way they got that wealthy is by plowing it all back in and letting it roll forward and just grow, right?
Which is also the compounding interest type of effect, right? It's the Berkshire Hathaway, type of thinking, Warren Buffett, right? If you just stay in the game as long as you can, compound and compound and compound, keep your money working for you as long as you can, without a major reset, without getting wiped out. That's how you do it. I mean, he's not the most successful investor year over year ever, but what he's done a great job is been about 83 years or 82 years. He's been investing since he was like 9 years old. He for all these years, he just never took a major hit. He never had to hit the restart button, and that's why he's been so successful.
Yeah. Mike, one of the ways that you've been successful is just relationships. You plow a lot into people. I know there's a lot of things that you do that are might maybe unique from the average real estate investor. Maybe just share your thoughts on just the power of relationships and having a long-term vision for what those relationships can be like and not being so transactional, maybe.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's kind of ties in with the delayed gratification thing too, right?
Right.
If you do the right things for the right reasons, it eventually yields monetary benefits as well. But there's other things that come out of it as well, and that's the strong relationships, right? The referrals come from strong relationships from people. Treating people correctly over the years, right? And so when you do that, it doesn't always happen in that first deal, but it pays dividends over time. And so it's really important. I do a lot of JV agreements, a lot of joint venture arrangements where I work with folks that I know and trust, and they know and trust me, and we work together, combine efforts to again do better on future deals. And that's another way when we talk about maximizing deals. What you can do, on another deal I did recently. This is just this year. I found the deal. I was mentoring a younger guy who was wanted to get into real estate and wanted to start doing like real deals. And so I was mentoring him already. He was looking for a deal to get started on, like kind of a cosmetic fix and flip. So found a deal from a free lead of mine, a free lead from a referral partner that I've just known for years. And I would just split deals. I chase the lead down, get it all done, and we'll split deals. So I paid nothing for the lead itself. And I turned around, we made a $44,000 wholesale fee on the property, sold it to my mentoree, and then I JV'd the mentoree. Let me back up. The mentoree, he was looking for a hard money loan, but he was going to pay 11, 12% interest rate and a point or two because he was a newbie in the business. And so I stepped in and said, look, I'll loan you the money. I'll loan you $300,000 at 9%. So I stepped in and became his lender too. So I already made a wholesale fee, $44,000,
Yep.
and became a 9% private money lender on a project that I knew I was safe with. And then I also did a JV agreement with him by saying, look, I'm going to help you guide you through this as part of our mentoring agreement anyway. I'm going to guide you through this particular project. It was project specific. I'll help you with any context if you need some handyman for this or that. I'll give you my thoughts on what you should improve, what you shouldn't improve. Some things you get your money out of, some things don't make good sense to get your money out of. And then I'll help you market it and get it sold. I have a flat fee MLS guy. I have a huge database of cash buyers. We'll put it out and so that's what we did. We marketed it and got it sold. And then as part of that JV agreement, I gave him the first 10K of profits that would come out of it after all costs were paid. And then we do a 50-50 split above that. So basically I set up where I had three income levels or stacks on top of that one deal. The initial wholesale revenue of 44 grand, the 9% loan, which ended up being, I think, about another 18 grand or something like that. And then the JV split, right? So 3 different ways to win on one single deal, and that's just by kind of using relationships, like you said, and then just thinking about how do I optimize this one deal to be the best it could be. And again, this is a deal I spent zero money on to get and nurture that deal. So that's how you're just thinking, that's how you can use your relationships, use your past experiences, and then your core competencies, like I said. And I think, what I'd love to see folks do is kind of make a list of what are they good at in the real estate world, right? Most of us are better or good at more than just one thing. So fix and flip, buy and hold, short-term rentals, JV deals if they just know people and know how to put connections together, private lending. There's so many different wholesaling, like you said, coaching and mentoring. Some people have a knack for buying businesses. They just understand what a business is and how to turn around a business. That's another great way of getting multiple streams of income on one deal. If you buy a business that also owns real estate, you have basically a double whammy there. You can uncouple them or combine them in a different way to create value. So take an inventory of what those items are that you're good at, and then start thinking about how can I combine and do 2 or 3 of those items on a particular deal. So the easy one is when you go to sell something, think about financing it on the back end to your buyer. So in one way, shape, or form. It could just be 5 grand, 10 grand, doesn't have to be a lot, but just think about getting that in place and setting that up. And then what does that do? And then once you successfully do one of those, then think about what else could you do? How else could you add your services on top of there and benefit for it? And while at the same time, you're helping the buyer in this case too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome, Mike. So I want to ask, because you've been around for a long time, if you can get your crystal ball out a little bit and just some wisdom. Like there's a lot of people that haven't been through a market cycle change before. You've been through several. And do you feel like this is just a normal cycle, or is there something? Because I think a lot of people think, well, this time it's different. Of course, I think every cycle, everybody thinks this time it's different, right? But with all you've seen, is it different this time, or is this just a normal cycle? And we're going to be right back to the whatever the new normal is. I'm not saying that things don't have an impact like long term, but obviously real estate investing is not going away in any means. But is it different this time, or is this just a normal cycle that everybody kind of brands it as different?
I think it's a normal cycle, absolutely a normal cycle, and we're here talking to 2023. I think if we talk in 2020, if we replay this in 2024, 2025, it's going to be the same thing. It's not that often that we hit really huge inflection points in real estate. The last one was 2008 to 2010 or so. And I'm not too proud to admit that I did have to hit the restart button, and for the most part back in that time, that did pause a lot of the wealth building, right? So you have to kind of restart from there. I don't see that what we're in right now being anywhere close to that. I see the volume is down, but it's mainly just because of the volatile interest rates. As soon as interest rates start to drop, which may not be this year, maybe this year, maybe next year, but as soon as that comes down or becomes the new norm in people's heads as to what they should expect to pay for a mortgage, then the activity will come back, and there's pent up demand that'll come out with it. I know Arizona numbers a lot better than I know across the country, but in many ways, as you said, Arizona kind of is a leading and hits the highs higher and the lows lower than the rest of the country. And I think that in Arizona, we're ready we're rebuilding. Our price per square foot is already coming up from December, where it was at its lowest. We're basically in a seller's market right now in almost every city within the core Phoenix metro area. And so I think that's probably a pretty accurate roadmap for most of the rest of the country too, where things are not quite as bad as we think they are. And there's leading indicators that are already out there showing us that it's better than the public thinks it is right now. And that's a great opportunity for us as in real estate investors to be able to buy and start taking advantage of those opportunities before the sellers realize that, oh crap, the market's coming back up, right? Right.
Yep.
It took all this time for the sellers to finally realize that last May is over, right? It took from June till pretty much March, April, May of this year for them to realize that no, it's not not a massive seller's market anymore. We've had to educate them. The media's had to educate them. They finally are getting that message. The last thing we want to do is tell them, hey, we're back. It's back. You can demand ridiculous retail prices again, right? But there's this period of time. These next few months are it, where we have the opportunity. We know that it's getting better. The leading indicators all show us that. But the sellers have not quite caught on because those contracts haven't closed yet. And so there's a great opportunity for us in that.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, Mike, I'm proud to not only be the first podcast that you agreed to be on in all these years and all these deals. Also proud to have you as a member of Investor Fuel. Would you mind sharing just your thoughts on Investor Fuel and why you're a member?
Well, yeah. So I'm a retread. I guess I should qualify that for those that don't know. I was one of the earlier members back in 2018, and then before around COVID time, I stopped being a member as it was kind of trying to figure out what was all going on with not just my business, but the national economy. And then I'm back, and I came back in 2023. Because of you, Mike, and because of what Investor Fuel offers, the type of people you guys are. It's an incredibly sharing environment. All the things I said earlier, very much true. It's you guys think about sharing first. It's not about egos. It's about information. It's about helping each other out. It's a very humble group, and to me, that is much more palatable, or much more attractive to me than a bunch of people just sharing how many Facebook friends they have. To me, okay, it's nice to have, and I know you have a lot, but you don't go bragging about it. It just is what it is, and that's fine. Of course, be successful. We're successful, but we don't have to go and tell everyone how amazingly successful we are. And so that's what I love about your group. And everyone, that type of person will continue to gravitate to you and to Investor Fuel because that's what you guys offer and deliver on.
That's great. I appreciate that, Mike. And I think, a guy like you, there's probably sometimes people are like, what could you possibly gain out of being around a lot of other people? You've done so much. And I know not everybody understands this, but when you've gotten to a certain point, you kind of need it in your heart or in your soul to give back, right? To help other people. But I think you would agree, you still get a lot of value being in a group like ours as well, right?
Yeah, I do. And my first thought when you start that sentence is that I think the main thing I get is the give. I mean, what I get is I enjoy giving and I enjoy helping others and instructing. So there is definitely a component of that, which is cool, I think I was lucky enough to get to get one of the biggest givers awards at
That's right.
the first one back, which is nice because I think that is part of it, and that's why we shouldn't sign up. We shouldn't be part of these groups if we're not going to participate, if we're not going to give, if we're not going to share what we've got, especially if you've been around and you've done a lot of deals. I mean, that's what it's about. But still, of course, I do pick up new tips, new ideas, things. Not everything originates in Phoenix, although sometimes you think that as we sit here in Phoenix. But we know there's great ideas all around the country, right? And there's some just super smart people everywhere. And it's been great having relationships with folks on the East Coast that we've gotten to know through the Investor Fuel meetings. I can't wait to see them again at the next meetings. It's just that kind of thing, and they do become friends, and you enjoy. You can't wait. The meetings are good, but the lunches, the dinners, the after hours activities are fantastic too. Just to get to know people and to collaborate on ideas.
Yeah, we've got a great group, and I'm glad you're a part of it, Mike. So, if folks wanted to connect with you in any way, if they're not already connected with you out in Phoenix, well, and I know you don't have spend a ton of time on social media because you're actually in the weeds doing the business. How do people connect with you if they want to learn more about what you've got going on?
Yeah, so they could hit me up at mikelima.com, which is one of my websites. So mikelima.com. Or I have my inventory site, or basically my site where I do the dispo from is truefreedomachievers.com. Truefreedomachievers.com. And I'm also on Facebook. I don't know my handle. So I'll ask you guys to help me out with that because I'm not on it that much, but I am endeavoring to be on there posting more. I've got a couple of cool projects going on right now that I've been trying to post on them and kind of let some viewers get some tips on what I'm doing out there.
Cool. Well, we'll put links for all this in the show notes here. So, Mike, thanks again for spending so much time. I feel honored to have had you here today, and I think everybody got a lot of value. So, thank you.
Pleasure, Mike. You guys are doing great stuff, man. I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, I appreciate you. And everybody, hope you got some great nuggets here. A lot of wisdom sharing here. And I think the best part about real estate investing, or honestly anything that you would do, is playing the long game, because you always gain so much wisdom as time goes by. You learn a lot of what not to do, and you learn a lot of how to do it differently and maximize the profits. So whatever you do, you want to do it well, and you want to do it for a long enough period to where you can weather the storm and know how to basically play in any market, right? There's opportunity for us as real estate investors in up and down markets, just like you just need to have the wisdom and the tools to weather those storms, right? So appreciate everybody for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care.
Thanks.
Are you an active real estate investor? If so, and you want to latch on to the power of surrounding yourself with over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors, all committed to building stronger businesses and living richer, fuller lives, you should jump on a call with us to learn more about Investor Fuel. Simply visit investorfuel.com to get started.